Sit back, relax. This is an Irish NFL show debut, I guess, with a slightly different twist in terms of how we cut across some of the major talking points of the week. Of course, not a lot of football has been played on the field this week. As the course of the season goes on, there'll be plenty for us to chew on as we launch the AV Club. Welcome in, guys. My name is Shane Brennan, but here I am doing a bit less of the talking, a bit more of the shepherding as we bring two of the harder working members of our team. All of our team are really hard working, but for the rest of us, we all get our chance to do a fine bit of blabbermouthing and to put our reputations on the line and to say things which are completely stupid. But we said we might as well extend that courtesy out to two men who spend a lot of time making sure all of our stuff looks and sounds as good as professional it does. So I'm going to start in the blue corner. A fellow compatriot of the class of 2023 when we both joined the Irish NFL show, Craig Rigden. Craig, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. It's good to get on here and do it. People might recognise the voice from mine and Brian's Hard Knocks Giants review, should we say, in the last off season in 2024, or obviously from my brief stint with yourself at Wembley this past season.
That was a very nice way of pronouncing Wembley. That's a proper English football man. It's not Wembley, it's Wembley.
Yeah.
He's coming straight in. And the newer member of the team, somebody who has joined in the recent off season, so it is a fresh acquisition, but somebody who has definitely put in a lot of work, making sure that all of our hot takes look good on social media. Ben Costello, good to have you on. Also good to have somebody who actually plays the game on the team. That is a rare and fine thing to have on the show.
Yeah, I guess it's funny for me to be like the AV club, but then also play the sport. It's a weird juxtaposition. And I guess while we're talking about where you might have seen me from, I had one recording episode with yourself, Shane, where we I think we recapped the kind of the Seahawks. Big Seahawks fan here, so you had me on. We talked. This is before I officially joined the show. So we had a good chat there. So if my streaming and recording experience is lacking, look back to that one episode. I thought it went really well. So
yeah, I mean, it went fine. I can't trying to think of any sort of major hot takes you had. Did you say the Seahawks to win the division? I don't think it's anything.
No, we recapped. This was post. I think we were in the middle of the Pro Bowl games when that came out. So if you want to talk, hot takes about Seahawks, I'm going to need longer than this episode's going for. So.
I mean, we have a whole season of plenty of hot takes. It's interesting as well. Our podcast listeners will not be able to appreciate the extent to which the Craig's background is very much nailing his colors to the mast. He's a New York Giants hoodie on, two New York Giants kits in the background. There's a big blue UK and Ireland flag. Of course, you are part of that podcast as well. And I think there is a nice reminder to a little Pats fan like me that the Giants were Super Bowl champions in Super Bowl 36. Just a nice sneaky one in there. Guys, I know you're both college football fans as well. Craig, I know you're soon heading off to the Sunshine State. You were watching Florida State play one of the bigger matches of college ball at the weekend. We'll talk NFL later on, but I just had to touch on this because FSU, Alabama, it was a rearing because Lee Corso obviously had his last college game day. All of his picks ended up being right, but when people looked at his pick that he was going FSU, over Alabama, it's obviously just emotional. He doesn't really think it could actually happen. I completely locked it down. It was a far cry from the Florida State performance he saw in Dublin last year.
Yeah, it's really strange because 2 years ago, so we're talking 2023, I watched LSU versus FSU in Florida, and with the sole intention of being an LSU supporter, knowing obviously that Beckham came from there, so there was the tie there, and just they are wide receiver U, etc. I watched the game, and a certain Rams defensive end, Jared Verse, just dominated the entire game and won me over. So I spent that season following the team. Really enjoyed it. They did really well up until a point where it got to college playoff season and their quarterback gets horrifically injured. They don't make it and it all goes south. Last year, I had the pleasure of watching from home. I didn't come over to Dublin for it, but watching FSU get trounced by Georgia State and the season going badly. And then I had no expectation for this weekend at all. And I saw that it was Bama, and I just went, okay, well, it's Bama. We'll just write that one off. We'll move on to next week. And I think we got what was probably one of the biggest surprises of the weekend with FSU taking over Bama. I mean, 28-14. Former Boston College quarterback Tommy Castellanos showing off every bit of poise, every bit of speed, just everything that DJ Uiagalelei just didn't show the previous year. And somehow he's still on an NFL roster because I think he's with the Chargers. But yeah, the defense looked confident, disruptive, fast, everything they didn't look in 2024. They've rocketed into the top 25 when they were basically put towards the bottom of every power ranking before the season started. And it's just a huge contrast compared to what we had last season. And the fact that they're now being looked as, one of the top 25 teams and could potentially go further. Mike Norvell just tore his whole coordinator room apart this offseason. And it seems to have paid off really, really quickly.
Yeah, it's a matter as well, because obviously Norvell was originally talked about in that sort of who's going to take over from Nick Saban conversation. He didn't quite get that job, and the job went elsewhere. Also interesting about Thomas Castellanos. I saw a stat over the weekend that he attempted 14 passes, but he carried the ball 16 times. And talk about a proper college performance. I think that was just one of the more interesting ones to watch. And Ben, I know obviously in the lack of we're without NFL football, but with proper competitive football to watch, I think a lot of us were keeping an eye on the college game. The Arch Manning thing was definitely an eye catcher because it just wasn't good. It wasn't what you'd expect of a Manning. The comments by Archie Manning that he actually might be staying in Texas next year were starting to ring through from that one. Either from that or from anywhere else in the college game. What did you notice?
Just as a weekend, an opening weekend for college football, I've never seen a more open playing field at the end of it. You normally expect these big names to dominate the likes of Bama, and you don't have a second thought. The obvious wins seem really obvious. This weekend was kind of the opposite, and I think that's what you've got now with the new 12-team playoff. Is nothing is ever guaranteed weekend to weekend, and you saw that with LSU Clemson. It came down really close, could have went either way. Bama versus Florida State. Even Notre Dame versus Miami. You kind of expected Notre Dame, who were in the college football championship game last year, and they end up losing to Miami, who have lost a lot of players to the NFL draft. Really surprising. And then, you've got Ohio State and Texas, which a lot of people had Texas favored in this, and for them to come out with a loss and for Arch Manning to look as bad as he did. Yeah, you're right. I was sitting there thinking, God, maybe he does do 2 years of this. And it's quite an overreaction. Obviously, it's one game. There's a lot of season left. You're against probably what should have been. They were ranked number 3 in the college football rankings, but I mean, they just won the national championship, so you got to take them as if they weren't the number 1 team before the game, they absolutely are now. So you got to look at it not in a vacuum and think, right, he's got a lot of season left. There's a lot of play for Arch Manning, and I don't have the stats for him, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good. So
no, so what stood out to me is the fact as well is that there was a lot of times where he was just checking the ball down. It's unusual to have the phrase "check down Merchant" and Manning in the same sentence, but that is the real takeaway from that match, which was just it felt wrong, even for me as a Patriots fan who has spent an entire dynasty measuring themselves off their ability to either lose or beat Mannings. It was a weird sight.
Was it kind of bittersweet to see ex-Patriots defensive coordinator Matt Patricia finally shut down a Manning?
You've been sitting on that one all week waiting for that.
Oh yeah.
It was certainly more satisfying than seeing Bill Belichick completely collapse out of his first outing as North Carolina head coach last night. Interesting. There was I believe there was a box that had Michael Jordan, Lawrence Taylor, and Jordan, I can't remember her last name, but Bill Belichick's girlfriend is sitting in the same box. I'm like, what did they even talk about? Like, come on. So that'll be great crack, by the way, if in the Aviva Stadium next year, that's gonna be the skybox. Let's talk about NFL, shall we? Because I know last night when we're recording this on Tuesday night. Last night we did our big sort of NFL preview where we all made our predictions as the teams who are up, who are down, whatever. One of the things I said the Lions won't make the playoffs when everyone else has the Lions making the Super Bowl. Ben, I'm going to throw it to you first in terms of your view on teams that may be under or overhyped, because it's very easy for us, especially even as a group of five of us who are generally on the show, to get into a bit of a group think about things. Like, for example, we're all very down on the Miami Dolphins in a way that maybe not everybody is. So you've been outside of the tent enough to maybe see things a little bit differently than we are. What way do you see overhyped and underhyped teams in the league?
In terms of hype, I thought I had some hot takes there until we were just about to hit record, and you told me about that Lions take, and I went, "Oh right, okay, this is we're going deep with these." I thought that was an extremely hot take with regards to the Lions not making the playoffs. But in terms of hype, I've kind of I look at two teams in the NFC South who I feel like are inappropriately hyped. You could change them and it would be correct, but I have, for teams in the overhyped category, I have the Buccaneers. Understandably so. They're division winners for X amount of years in a row, and they're a lot more stable of a team. My only issue with them right now is the loss of Liam Cohen. I think is a really big loss, and Baker has played with a different coordinator basically since he's got into the NFL, I think every year. So, and he's up and down in that category. Some years it's good, some years it's bad. I see a down year just with the aging roster in the wide receiver room and the defense. They do have some young Bucs. I didn't mean for young Bucs to come across like that, but you know what I mean.
If the punt comes, you got to take it. You just got to take it.
Some literal young Buccaneers come in and they're going to make an impact. Emeka Ibuka and stuff like that. But I think it's. I don't think the division is quite as solidified as it has been in the last couple of years. I think it's a lot better. So I think they're overhyped, and a complete juxtaposition of that, I have the Falcons. I think are underhyped. I think Michael Penix is in for a big year. I think the weapons they have on that offense, I understand it's completely on paper, but how do you stop it? You've got Bijan, you've got Drake London. Is it finally Drake or Kyle Pitts breakout year 4 or 5 years in a row? You have to think it is. But that and a much better offensive line. They've after going heavy on pass rush in the draft. So I think those two teams, if you swap the hype, if you swap the expectations, they would be correct. But as of right now, that's where I stand on those two teams.
It's funny you say that because they actually face off this weekend. Tampa Bay and Atlanta. In Atlanta, the Bucs are coming into this as 2.5-point favorites. Over under 47.5 points. I think. I don't know what to say. I'll be honest. I've struggled to fully believe in Atlanta. I haven't seen enough in Penix yet. Now, I know, again, it's been difficult. We see this, for example, like with Jordan Love a couple of years ago. It takes a bit of time to get in to the rhythms of the season. And look, after all, Atlanta did beat Tampa Bay twice last year. You know, they definitely have that matchup sewn up, and that would make things interesting in the NFC South. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on, because when we did our NFC South preview, when we got to the Buccaneers section, we actually didn't really look down at the rest of the NFC South. There was just how far can they go? Can they win 17 games? We weren't quite that excited for them, but that's definitely a different take, I think, than the way we have looked at that. Craig, you have to have some alternative views as well in terms of how we've ranked some of these teams.
Yeah, I've got to say I'm a little upset with Ben there, seeing as the Bucs are in my Super Bowl prediction, which I'm sure is coming out at some point over the next few days for all of us. But it's interesting just to see, just how different a view two people can have on a singular team. Now, if you look at overrated, ESPN have this team at 9th in their power rankings, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. And I have them missing the playoffs this year. I am not sold on JJ McCarthy. He hasn't played a meaningful snap in the NFL. He's coming off the back of a serious knee injury. They also have other wrinkles. 80% of the offensive line is different. only one of their tackles played for the team last year. Yes, they picked up Will Freeze in free agency, which is a move I really, really hoped that the Giants were going to make. But I think he went to the Vikings for probably more money and more stability, knowing what the Giants are like at the moment. But, the Vikings have parts. They have, obviously, Justin Jefferson, who is arguably one of, if not the best wide receiver in the league. They have Hawkinson, who I think is quite good. Aaron Jones worries me a little bit. He is aging, which is why obviously they've picked up Jordan Mason from the 49ers and traded for him because of the fact that they just needed that kind of insurance policy there. But if you look outside of Naylor and Jefferson, their wide receiver room isn't exactly amazing depth-wise, and I think an injury could kind of derail that and maybe make them a little one-dimensional. And then their cornerback group, they've changed a few of their cornerbacks. Obviously, Stephen Gilmore's gone, who has a lot of experience. They've got Jeff Okudah there. But I think you would describe them as a raw cornerback group. And I think you're probably likely to see a lot of boom or bust this year with the Vikings cornerbacks. I think they could get torched or they could lock down quite easily against any team, and it will be a confidence thing. Underrated, I am going full homer here with the Giants.
Come on. I'll stop here. I've had to listen to Brian O'Leary talk with Daniel Jones for all this time, only to listen to you say that Jameis Winston is the next god. Is that it?
It's not Winston. It's not. No. Now, ESPN have the Giants ranked at 25th. You cannot tell me we are a bottom 10 team anymore with a defense like we have. Russell Wilson is not Broncos country, let's ride, Mr. Unlimited anymore. He is a former Super Bowl champion, but he's not going to come in and be the Russell Wilson who can beat you with his legs as much as he can beat you through the air in every route combination. It's just not going to happen. His deep ball is still one of the best in the NFL. That's a statistic that is backed up as well. He led the NFL in throws over 20 yards for accuracy last season. And considering he only played 11 games, it's still pretty impressive. You've got Malik Neighbors, who somehow thrived with three of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last year in Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and TB12, as we nicknamed him, Tim Boyle. Tommy DeVito didn't even do anything last year, so he doesn't even come into the conversation.
Sorry, when I started doing the Italian hands, I completely forgot about Tim Boyle's existence, I'll be honest. I just got too excited because I saw the pictures of Tommy DeVito's agent in the North End in Boston, now that Tommy DeVito is a New England Patriot. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Tommy Cutlets to Tommy Chowder, isn't it?
Brilliant.
But yeah, the Giants have also added Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland to solidify their backfield, which was a massive, massive Achilles heel for us last year. And Abdul Carter has joined the best defensive front in football. You have Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau, who might actually finally live up to some of the expectation that we had of taking him with the 5th overall pick. So I do think that the Giants are underrated, and it's not just by ESPN. It's every analyst. It's Vegas. Across the board, they're just not a loved team.
It's an interesting one because I'm high enough on the Giants to say that I'm not saying that they are cert to finish last in the division in the way that a lot of people are looking at this team and saying, well, the Eagles are obviously better, the Commanders are obviously better, and the Cowboys are obviously better. The Cowboys are definitely at risk there. There's a lot to like about the Giants. I thought their quarterback play in the preseason was definitely was what worked out pretty sweet between all four guys that they had. Obviously, Tommy DeVito being the odd man out there. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Jackson Dart can do whenever it is that he gets introduced. Whether that happens in this season or not, we don't know. But my big question mark is over Russell Wilson because, Ben, you'd noticed from seeing Russell Wilson for years as a Seattle Seahawk, my view on him based on the last couple of years, particularly his time in Pittsburgh, is that Russ will give you 4 good games until things will start going a bit wrong. I don't know whether it's in the dressing room or his consistency of play. Last year for the Steelers, there was a month we were like, oh, Russ is here. Russ is pretty strong. They should have given him the job. instead of Justin Fields at the start of the season. We remember that was a sort of quarterback controversy in Western Pennsylvania. And then he completely fell off the wagon, and Pittsburgh didn't even countenance keeping him on the squad. They were quite happy to go for months without a quarterback before eventually signing old Aaron Rodgers. So what's your view on Russell Wilson in terms of what we should expect from him in the New York Giants? Because it's another change for him. He needs to be a leader in the locker room. But at the same time, I think like Craig was alluding to, the skill set that brought him to a Super Bowl ring, to another Super Bowl champion or another Super Bowl appearance, and kept him relevant in a very tough NFC West for years and years, hasn't completely disappeared.
No, not in the slightest. And you saw a little bit of it in the preseason. I don't know the wide receiver's name who he threw that 80-yard absolute beauty of a ball to. And it was a perfect example of what a Russell Wilson moonball can look like. But it's there. Not as often, but I don't think it's crazy to say that Malik Neighbors is probably the best receiver that he's ever played with in his career. And that's, with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, numerous other wide receivers who are very good in their own right. But I think it's a clear-cut thing. This is the best threat that Russell Wilson has ever had the ability to throw to. It took me everything in my power not to draft Malik Neighbors in fantasy football this year. I was going to take him 6th overall ahead of CeeDee Lamb, ahead of Christian McCaffrey, and I just that QB situation, it's uncertain until you see it. Yeah, so you can't trust it for fantasy, but I think he's going to be good. I think they officially listed Jackson Dart as QB2 today. So does that mean Jackson Dart's going to get some play early on? I think if Russell Wilson goes down, I think they will go to Jameis first. I think they just want him in there as QB2 for some meaningful minutes rather than meaningful games. But I expect it's hard to decline on being the number 3 overall pick. So, yeah, I guess they are underrated. I see them as an 8-8 team. Yeah, with or without Russ ending the season 8-8. I think if you go 9-8 and they're knocking on the door of the playoffs, it's a successful season. Brian Dable keeps his job. And you go from there. You build on it. Well, that defense is so scary.
But on that point, right, being an 8-8 team, obviously that's 8-9, 9-8 in the new money. That's better than being 25th in the league. And also, sorry, a very side point. Interesting, you mentioned Malik Neighbors. I was in a draft earlier on this afternoon, by the way, with a bunch of journalists in the UK. Completely forgot it was on. Who did the automatic? Did I get automatically in the first round? Malik Neighbors. So I'm hoping that for him to have some good performances.
I think he could either win you or lose you a league. Honest to God, he could win it for you.
But put us on it. I mean, like, if we are looking at the Giants as a 9-8 squad, like that's to Craig's point, that's not a 25th ranked squad. So what are we all missing here?
The Vegas money line for under/over for wins this season is 5.5, and I personally think that's insulting.
Insulting? Ooh, he's a bone to pick with Vegas now. He's coming for you guys. So, I think their first game is at the Washington Commanders. It could be important to get a hot start though. So, it's funny though because just to link on to our next point, when you're talking about the Giants, and I think one of the big things which is holding people back in terms of that over-under expectation of wins is the fact that we don't know how much trust we have or there is generally in Brian Dable and Joe Schoen. There's a lot of teams in the league like that in terms of coaches who are on the hot seat. I personally think that Joe Schoen and Brian Dable are both on a lukewarm seat, in that because they've drafted a quarterback, they will probably still be given another year no matter how this year goes, unless it's another 4-win season, which I don't think is going to happen because I do think the Giants are going to win at least 6 games. That's my floor for the Giants, which is an improvement. I think they could potentially win 9. I'm not knocking them down. I'm not really knocking hope. I think they're going to be very tricky when the Patriots have to play them on Monday Night Football on the 1st of December, for example. But I'll start with you on this, Craig. In terms of who else is on the hot seat, is there anybody who's on the real sort of coaching hot seat that we're not really focusing in on? The way that, for example, we all knew that Chicago was a very hot seat this time last year.
Yeah, this is going to seem like I'm going to start doing some Daniel Jones bashing here, but that might be the only time that I actually mention him, Paul, maybe one other time. So if you haven't guessed, it's the Colts, Shane Steichen, for me. I mean, he is the third favourite in betting to be the first coach fired. So I'm not pulling out something that's shocking or, is kind of out of the blue, but he has a QB room that's probably not going to help him this season with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Jones in preseason has looked like the Daniel Jones that we came to kind of expect at the Giants. And Anthony Richardson, for all that raw talent and arm strength that everyone was kind of, lauding when they took him, he's kind of shown all the flaws that he also had when they took him, and it hasn't really seemed to kick on too much. There's obviously that part last year where it was kind of brought into fruition that maybe he's not trying hard enough. Maybe he's not trying hard enough to get better. Maybe he's just trying to coast through. And I think that Steichen got a lot of backlash effects over how he handled that. He benched him, and it never went very nicely in the terms of how he explained it and all the reasons that he had for doing it. It was all felt almost like he was trying to both defend the player and bury the player at the same time, which made no sense whatsoever. But I also think that if the Colts have a bad season this year, which a lot of people are saying they may well do, and they're unlikely to finish above fourth in their division, Chris Ballard could be gone. And Ballard is the man who hired Steichen. So it could just be a case that they go, you know what, let's do a complete reset here and let's go. And even if they don't, the new GM coming in might go, I don't want him anyway. So I do think that if you're looking at anyone, he is probably one of those where we could see him go during the season, if not at the end.
Do you have it to hand, by the way, if you're saying that Shane Steichen is the third favorite to be sort of fired this season? Who's number 1 and 2? Do you have it to hand?
Mike McDaniel is number 1 and Brian Daboll is number 2.
Brian Daboll is number 2. I'm surprised. I'm slightly surprised at that. Not surprised at all, Mike McDaniel, as we've discussed so much on this program. But I think most of us are of the opinion that Mike McDaniel probably shouldn't be in the job now, or which is probably slightly too harsh. Ben, who do you have on the coaching hot seat?
My answer is kind of boring in that the whole team is a bit boring as a whole, and it's probably why people aren't talking about it. It's Jonathan Gannon, the other Eagles coordinator from that Super Bowl run. The whole team is just meh.
There's definitely not NFC West spite in there. You looking at the Arizona Cardinals, being like, boring. Kyler Murray is a weird quarterback. Boring.
I can give the NFC West teams their dues when it's time. I'm big on the Rams this year. I think the 49ers are in for a bounce back year. The Cardinals are just there. And I think nobody's talking about them or their head coach. I think they need to hit a reset button. I think it's the same for Kyler Murray this year as well. I think if he doesn't perform well, they're going to think to look to other options. So between those two, my real hot seat, and it's not so much an NFL hot seat, it's a college hot seat. It's Kalen DeBoer from Alabama. I think he is very much, at the end of this year, you could see them looking for the next Alabama head coach, and I think they could be crying to Nick Saban to come back, because after that game, it was just diabolical. So that's my real hot seat head coach for this week.
There was somebody on, was it ESPN or First Take this morning, who was basically like, Nick Saban's wasting his time sitting on College Game Day. He should be back in coaching Alabama. One loss, and it's already, the sky is falling in on Tuscaloosa. Back to your point on Jonathan Gannon, I think, like you say, the Cardinals, I think a lot of people are looking at them as actually potentially having enough talent in there to go and take that division. Because remember, there was a time last season when they were in control of the NFC West, but I think the problem was they had to play the Seahawks twice in a 3-week period, and there was another game in between that I can't recall to hand, and they completely blew it. They lost both those games to Seattle. The later gone into the season, didn't beat the Rams that needed to. didn't get a couple of key wins. And I just wonder, like, as an organization, what have they done to try and recapture the momentum? Like to your point, Ben, I don't see it, and I don't see it with Kyler Murray, and even with the talent he has around him, Marvin Harrison Jr., James, I do like James Conner. I'm a fan of James Conner and Trey McBride, but you're running back and tight end is grand. What about your receiver room? What does Kyler Murray have to work with when he decides to throw the ball? That is, which isn't always he doesn't decide to throw the ball at the right time quite often.
Yeah, it's all well and good having the talent. I mean, we see a lot of talented teams out there with a lot of great players, but until you put it together and start getting some belief in that team, and I don't think there is any. I don't think anyone in Arizona believes their team is going to the Super Bowl. So until that they do something there culturally or with on-field play, that's all they're going to be, is just there.
Just there.
They exist.
I can't wait until, when do the Cardinals play against the Seahawks? It's going to be just their bowl.
Yeah. As a 10-7 missing the playoff team, we're right with you there. But at least we're trying. We changed our quarterback and changed a lot, so we're trying something different.
Well, here we go. Thursday night football on the week of the Dublin game, Cardinals Seahawks. So we can all stay up late and make sure we're really, really tired going into what's going to be an incredibly busy week to watch the just there as Arizona Cardinals play against the Seattle Seahawks. I think it's an interesting one. I'll be honest, and the NFC West is an interesting one to me because obviously the Rams, as we know, are coming in as favorites. I'm quite high in the Seahawks. I back them to win the division this year. I think they have everything going for them. The Cardinals, I agree with you. I don't think they're particularly strong. In terms of who's on the hot seat, by the way, I might as well throw out my name, Brian Schottenheimer, head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Talk about taking a poison chalice, but also approaching it in a way which I don't really think is conducive to keeping your job. He's going to press conferences with his little visor on backwards, which I know is the kind of thing that Colin Cowherd goes mad over when there's nothing else to go mad over, as he generally does. But I just think that his general demeanor isn't. You're like, come on, man, try to help yourself here. He's had parts of the team ripped out from under him, not least in the Micah Parsons situation. He's going to be under a lot of pressure to make sure he gives Dak Prescott whatever he wants, because there's obviously past there in terms of he's coming in as defensive coordinator. The Jerry Jones sort of aura will be over the whole mess. And then in the end, Bill Belichick will decide that college football isn't for him and go crying to Jerry Jones looking for a job, and Shoddy will be out the door. So that's how I see that one going. So, right, lads, I think that's most of what we had on the agenda for the first AV Club. Anything else in the agenda? We're obviously all looking forward to the first games on Sunday. Plenty happening across Sky and Channel 5 and and DAZN, and Jesus, it's gonna be some crack. I don't know what have you guys got Sunday routines? So forgive me as I'm trying to put the shade back on my camera.
I just need some football back in my life that's meaningful. Thursday night cannot come quick enough. Never mind Sunday. So looking forward to stop talking hypotheticals and start talking actual results. So that's going to be good.
How many late games do you guys usually stay up for, Craig?
Not too many, because we're not normally on prime time. The Giants have, I think, 3 primetime games this year against the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Patriots, funny enough. So there won't be many this year. But my ritual on a Sunday normally is to have DAZN on my tablet in front of me. I have the podcast Twitter page up there, so I can kind of get involved in all the chats. And then normally the stat sheet to the right, so I actually know what the hell's going on, just to kind of tie it all together.
So you a 4-screen man. You got the stats, the Twitter, the Giants game on the tablet, and then presumably Red Zone on the TV behind you, do you?
Yep.
See, I thought I was mad because I'm effectively a 3-screen man. I have the laptop open for the Pats game, and then I'll pick a late game if the Pats are playing at 6. So I'll probably have a Packers Lions on the thing, Red Zone on the thing, and then I'm just constantly on my phone, just sort of tapping away, being like, "Oh my god, did you see the play that Saquon Barkley has just done?" So I thought I was mad, but no, of course, Craig has to come. The great graphic designer that he is, the man who has done so much with the laptop, has to make sure he has the stat sheets as well.
Yes,
you've seen the draft binder he put together for folks at home. We got sent the draft folder that he put together, and it was, not to be dramatic, 500 pages long. So for
incredible, NFL teams should be paying for that
honest to God. So the fact that you're overdoing it with screens
everything
and all this, with other things in your life, does not surprise me in the slightest.
What about you, Ben? Are you like simple?
No, I'm a simple man. I got my Red Zone, Scott Hansen talking to me, and I've got fantasy football up on my phone, and I'm cheering for certain players, and I'm booing other team when things score, and I have my partner questioning why I'm cheering for certain players and why I have certain agendas. What I explained to her that I'm on 4 fantasy football teams, so that's me. I don't get too in depth with it. Red Zone kind of covers most of me. I'm a simple man.
Fair enough. Well, it's nice to see all of the correlation. Look, just for any of our listeners and watchers, the AV Club is probably the best chance for you to get in touch with us if there's anything you want us to sort of talk about as a group. So let us know what your Sunday routines are. Mine, by the way, I always make sure that at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, I have a big pint glass of red lemonade. That's where you know I'm settled in. None of this hard stuff. No tea, no beer. Red lemonade, I'm ready to go. Red lemonade and Red Zone is my Sunday sorted. I'm very much looking forward to this Sunday being the first time. Craig, Ben, that was your debut. How are you feeling? This is your welcome to the Irish NFL show moment. Has there been any hits?
Yeah, well, welcome to the league, isn't it? I don't think we've had any hits yet, but I'll be looking forward to getting involved in some mailbag questions. That would be something really good. Something maybe that people can throw curveballs or ask anything on hot takes or even specific players.
Yeah, specific players. I'm sure it'll be you guys are always great for getting into the real specifics of things. Ben, thank you very much for your debut performance. We're looking forward to hearing from you more over the course of the season and in a couple of the international games as well.
Yeah, I just when you say welcome to the NFL moment, I'm sure there will be comments in the comment section that will hit as hard as TJ Watt might do on a rookie quarterback. So looking forward to reading those and seeing what you guys think of what we have to think of. So yeah, it's gonna be good.
Listen, like the further we get into the season, when we actually start debating about things, like there's definitely gonna like come a point in the year where we're gonna have the Travis Hunter, should he be playing what offense or defense argument, because of course everyone has got their points to that. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish NFL show. We look forward to seeing you next week, and make sure you tune in for all of our content across the weekend as our full schedule really starts to build up for the 2025 NFL season.